Hello, everybody. Hello. So we're going to give a couple minutes for everybody to jump in on here, and then we will get started. We're going to talk survival. We're going to talk shelters. We're going to have some question and answer. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So we will get going. Hello, hello, hello. Get him, Dan. Thanks, Conrad. Hello, everybody. This is always the weirdest part of doing a live feed is the initial ramp up. There's not much to say. You want people just to join in. Hello. Where's everybody from? Shoot me some places you're from while we let this load up and we get some people on here. Dave, hello. I love Filson too. Feel like I love Filson. Illinois, hello. Atlanta. Utah, yeah, getting all over the place. Kentucky, this is great. I'm so pumped. Okay. Rhode Island. Somebody said, I don't know who you are, but you look like you know what you're doing. I know a little bit of what I'm doing. Survival professional. Okay, so let's get started. This is going to be posted in the feed later on anyway. So if you missed the beginning of this and you're going back, you'll see it. People that are here, thank you for joining us. So today I am going to be talking about survival shelters and how important they are and different ways we can configure survival shelters when we're out in the woods, and not just for the hardcore, totally immersed survivalist, but just for the normal outdoor recreation person that is going outside. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks because what I do for a living is I run a survival school. So my name is Dan Wowak. I'm the owner of Coal Cracker Bushcraft, an Appalachian Bushman school where we teach survival, we teach bushcraft, we teach wilderness living skills, and we also teach self-reliance skills. So my specialty is teaching people how to be more comfortable and keep themselves alive in emergency situations while in the woods. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over survival shelters. We're going to start super basic and we're going to go to more advanced. So by the time you're done, you should have a good bearing on what is a survival shelter, how to set it up, and ways that you can protect yourself and keep yourself safe while you're recreating outdoors. All that stuff we're going to start with. But the best way to start this is to say that when we think about the outdoors, there's really only 4 things we as humans need, and they are called the survival priorities. We need food, we need water. Everybody knows that. We need fire. Now, that's something that sets people back a lot because we say fire. So food, water, fire. Well, fire, how do we use fire? So we use fire all the time in our daily lives. We just don't actually have the campfire going. So we cook our food, we purify water, or we just get water that was purified. In a wilderness setting, we boil that water. And we also use electricity in our everyday lives to make the tools we need to prosper and make our lives better. And the last part of that is shelter. We need shelter. We need to protect ourselves from the environment around us. Now, the first line of shelter that people overlook all the time because they want to just jump in that debris shelter that you saw posted on the Filson blog this past week. But the first thing we need to think about when we think about shelter is what we're wearing. And it's the most important thing. And from a survival instructor standpoint, I can't stress this enough. When we go outside and we're going to recreate outside, you always need to think a few hours ahead of what time it is right now. So we're located in Pennsylvania right now. It's like 60 degrees, super comfortable. If I was going to go hike and walk around in the woods, I can definitely just wear a t-shirt. I know that my body temperature is going to be up from walking around. But if we jump ahead 5 hours, say I sprain my ankle and I just can't go anywhere and nobody comes out to get me. 5 hours from now, it might be high 40s, windy, rainy, and a t-shirt's just not going to cut it. So if we always think ahead a little bit and we just take a shirt, we take a sweater, wrap it around our waist, throw it in our backpack, or even better, we can always just carry rain gear with us because rain gear doesn't let water in, but it also doesn't let the heat out. So if we're cold, we throw some rain gear on, even on just a windy evening, it's going to warm us up. So first line of defense, the way you dress. Always be prepared for a few hours ahead of time. We don't even need to say much more about that. The next thing is the shelter itself. So what the shelter is going to do for you, the shelter is going to protect you from the environment and the weather conditions around you. Weather conditions, primarily wind, rain, and snow. So I always tell individuals that you don't need any skill to set up a shelter if you carry one along with you, okay? If you get more advanced, which we're going to do today, we're going to show you how to build a debris shelter. That requires a little bit of skill, a little bit of time, and it's just not as comfortable. So let's just run through this. My recommendation, always in your backpack, in your day pack, in your satchel, carry a shelter. I'm going to show you super quick how to set up a shelter So think of clothing like level 1. Level 2, that's where we're headed right now. We're headed to, you're gonna carry something along with you. So in my backpack, tucked away in the back, less than 1 pound, just a El Cheapo tarp, okay? So tarp you buy at Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, less than a pound. You can carry this thing with you. The only thing you're gonna have to add to this is you're gonna have to get yourself some rope. Doesn't matter what kind of rope. I'm using orange so everybody can see. You're gonna open this thing up and you're gonna grab 2 ends. I already tied rope on one end. I'm gonna go across to the other end and then I'm gonna take this rope. All that I'm gonna do with this now is I'm gonna just tie it right on. All right, really easy stuff. Not complex. I don't care how you tie it on, just tie it on there. And then you have a survival shelter. Wait till you see this thing set up, it's so great. So we take that end and all that we're gonna do is I'm gonna just tie it off with an overhand knot. Again, whatever you wanna do, you're good with, okay? So now we have this tarp, we have these ropes on, less than a pound, and something happens while we're out. We're hiking with the family, we're hiking with loved ones, somebody sprains an ankle, it starts to rain. We can set this thing up in less than a minute, literally no problem whatsoever. So let me back this camera up and show you what I'm talking about. So what I would do is I would open this thing up and I would grab one end. This end, I'm gonna find a tree like right here. I'm gonna pull this around, loop it as many times as I want. And all that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tie a shoelace knot. I'm gonna show you up close on the other side what I'm doing here. So I just tie it off like that. And then I can grab the other side of the tarp right here. And I'm gonna just pull this against the tree. So you see I have my 2 lines here coming off of the shelter, okay? Just like this. I'm gonna pull that up against the tree now. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tie this just like I'm tying my boots. So I'm gonna pull that tight and I tie my bow right there, okay? Now, at this point, you might be thinking, well, look at this contraption. What's gonna happen here? So it's really simple. You're gonna grab some sticks. You don't even need tent pegs. You're gonna pull this thing back. And that quick, you have yourself a survival shelter. So what this thing is called is a lean-to. You'd want to position this that as the wind blows, the lean-to itself is taking on all the wind. So I literally did that under 1 minute. Very easy, very simple, very lightweight for everybody to carry. And if it was raining, I can get under here, I can lay under here, and I'm super protected from the elements around me. Now I say don't even worry about tent pegs, because worst case scenario, you literally just break a stick apart and jam this down in the ground in one of the grommets in the back, and you're good. But if you want to be a little bit more fancy, I'm going to show you a real quick tip, and then we're going to get into the cool shelters. That's by taking a branch right off the tree and make this a tent peg. So how we're going to do this is the branch was growing this way. So what we're going to do, take this branch and we're going to shorten it. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to trim it down. I'm going to take the top part, so this was growing down into the tree. And what we're going to do here is we're going to make that short. Now I'm going to take this last branch and I'm just going to point the end down dirty and quick. That quick, I have a tent peg. Okay, so really easy. Stuff on the fly is always the easiest. Nature is everything we need in order to keep us safe while we're out here. Okay, so lean-to shelter, really easy. Go buy a tarp. You don't need a big one. Something small, something lightweight you could put in your kit and forget about, and then you will always have a way to protect yourself. But what if you don't want to carry it? What if you don't want to take the survival instructor's advice and you're still going to go out, and then you're out and something bad happens? Well, there's other things that we can do, and that's called a debris shelter. All right, it's going to end up looking like this bad boy right here. So that is a proper debris shelter for a guy my size. So I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2", about 225 pounds, and that looks super small. But the reality is that we want those shelters small. We want them tight because we want them to trap our body heat. We want them to keep us warm, because you got to remember, if you're sleeping in that thing, you're not going to have a blanket, and you're going to be in there. You're not going to have a fire out front, or it's going to catch on fire. So you need that thing to trap heat and keep you warm while you're there. So to start that process, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by building a quick frame. Now, what you need to remember through this whole process is that when you do this, you shouldn't have to cut anything. It's called a debris shelter. We should be able to gather things from the ground around us and just make it work, okay? So I grabbed some logs. I made a quick frame. The reason that I did that was because we need to insulate ourselves from the ground. That's really, really, really important. If you were to lay on the ground, especially in colder weather, the ground's mass is way more than our mass. So it's gonna suck all our heat out. It's gonna make us super cold. So when we build that frame, we're gonna then pack it with leaves, just like I did right here in the front, okay? Now, you can see how much leaves I pack compared to the back section here. We need to remember that when we lay on a pile of debris and it compresses, in order to properly maintain our temperature, we need 4 to 6 inches of compressed material. So we're creating a mattress. So we need a lot of material between us and the ground to keep us warm. If you can get more than 4 to 6 compressed inches, all the better, but that's about the minimum. Now, the reason for the frame, if you would take a pile of leaves like this and lay on it, what happens is over time, they start to push out, and then you just end up with nothing between you and the ground. So you always wanna make sure that you put at least some logs on the side so those leaves don't push out, and then pack the leaves on. Just keep packing them in and fill that thing in. Then you have your bed made. From that point, now you're gonna start to build the frame. So I went ahead and I built a frame. So here, what you can see is the frame that I started to construct. Now, there's no right or wrong. The only part you need to remember is this thing should be tight, it should be small, it should fit just you. If there's another person, yeah, you're gonna have to make it bigger, but it should be enough that when you crawl in there, you feel closed in. You need it to trap that heat. So again, debris. I like that this A-frame style, it seems simple, it seems easy for most people. All that I did was I utilized a ridge pole down the middle, which is a little tough to see here, but you can see this ridge pole right here starts at the front and goes all the way back. And then there's literally nothing super technical about this, okay? We're just laying material on there. Now, most people at this point would say, well, how's that holding anything? It's not gonna do anything. It's just not structurally sound enough. These are old rotted sticks. I mean, there is literally rotted wood here. And that's okay, again, debris shelter. So we're putting this stuff in place in order just to hold our debris. So this would be our next step. At this point then, you would have to figure out, depending on your environment, do you need branches? Do you need more sticks? What's gonna hold that debris in place? Lucky for us, we have a lot of hemlock in this area. So I gathered a lot. Just break the branches right off, and then really quickly, what I can start to do is I could start to lay this hemlock in place. That's allowing me to cover up that shelter that quickly. Nice and thick, right away, not much hassle at all. Break branches, pile it on there. That's gonna give me my first layer of not only something to waterproof me, but it's also gonna allow somewhere for the leaves to catch, okay? So it's gonna take a little bit of time to set up this frame, set up your mattress, fill your mattress with leaves, and then figure out how you wanna do this. But these hemlock boughs, great addition to this. These are also really nice to be able to sleep on. You can pile these things down instead of leaves. You can sleep on them as your mattress. Again, you gotta use your imagination when you're out here. So we went from that initial frame. We jump right back over there. We go from this initial frame, we fill it with leaves. We jump over to building our frame itself structurally to hold up all the debris. And then we need to cover that with something, layer one. That's super important. That first layer is important because from there, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start to fill that up with actual debris from the ground. So literally, we take debris from the ground and we start packing it on top. Now, this is the most time-consuming part. This is something that's gonna take a long time. You need to make sure that you have the right materials around, and you also need to be very careful when doing this. And the reason for that is because if you're not careful and you're just sticking your hands down in the ground, depending on your location, might depend on if there's snakes, if there's bugs that bite, if there's poison ivy, what's on the ground. So my recommendation always, just utilizing your foot or a stick, you just want to kick that material around like that before we grab it, okay? That's gonna, again, take a while to get everything packed on there. Now, as a rule of thumb with this, how much debris do we put on? It's gonna vary on what the weather conditions are. It's gonna vary on what your actual situation is and how much debris you have and how much time you have. So it's important that you have enough on that if you took a sprinkling can of water, because most people can wrap their mind around this, and poured that sprinkling can of water on and filled it up again and poured it again and then a third time, and it didn't totally leak through, you're okay. It's enough to keep you safe throughout the night. And that leads me into the final thoughts of this. A few things you need to remember when it comes to these type of shelters. First and foremost, a shelter like this is a survival shelter. It is not going to be luxurious. It's not going to be comfortable. It's to keep you alive, okay? So the quicker that you can remember that and keep your mind wrapped around that, the better this is going to be. Crawling in there, it's going to be tight. There might be bugs, okay? And that's just part of it. So do you want to get bit by some bugs or do you want to be alive? And that's how you really need to think about these types of things. So if you can do this and you can get inside and you can keep yourself dry and protected from the wind, your body's temperature is going to warm up that leaf mattress that we initially built for the ground. It's also going to give off heat, and that heat is going to get trapped inside that shelter to warm up that shelter. Because again, we have no sleep gear. This is our sleep gear at this point. So we need to build this like a little house. Now, some downfalls with this compared to our blue shelter that we built, okay? The debris shelter, you don't have to carry anything. You can just put this thing together. It's gonna be uncomfortable. It's not gonna be the best night's sleep. It's gonna take a while to build. The blue shelter, on the other hand, you could put that up really quick. If there's a storm, if it's just windy, it's gonna help you in the short term, just block everything out. The blue shelter, on the other hand, though, is not going to trap body heat inside for you. So you're probably gonna need to carry some type of fire starting device along with you. Now, a lot of people will say with both shelters that they just don't feel safe in those shelters. But what you need to remember is we're not trying to protect ourselves from animals. We're trying to protect ourselves from the environment around us. So if we're dressed appropriately and we can keep that temperature close to what we need it to be on our body, then we should be able to get through the night. Okay, so it's always important. Again, here comes the survival instructor out in me. Always important to try to carry that shelter device, carry something to drink, carry something to eat, and carry some type of fire starting device. If you could do that stuff, you really have it made, because they are the primary needs that we as individuals have in order to keep ourselves alive while we're out in the woods. Okay, so right now what we'll do is we'll answer a couple questions. Any survival type questions, any questions about the shelters we just put together, I'll try to go over that stuff, get as many as we can. Golden hour's coming in. Filson's gonna love this, man. Okay, let's see what we got going on. So I'm getting lots of thumbs up from everybody. Let's see if we got any questions. I'll scroll through here. Yes, so people are like, this is gonna just keep you alive. It is so important to just remember that. Remember that this is going to keep you alive, not comfortable. It's all right to be uncomfortable as long as you are still alive in the morning, because it's really those nighttime hours that, again, are most important. So the shoes I'm wearing, since it's Filson, we'll talk about clothing. These are Iron Rangers from Red Wing. So they are stylish, yeah. All right. All right. Okay, what else we got? No questions. All right, so somebody asked about a super shelter. We're talking about shelters. Let's talk about that. So a super shelter is going to be built very similar to this shelter. You can also use a debris lean-to shelter. Again, that's called a lean-to. And then you drape plastic over the front with a long fire in front of it. That's going to make a greenhouse type effect and trap that heat inside. That's used a lot in the boreal forest up north in Canada because it gets so cold up there that they need to figure a way out to stay alive. All right. Okay, good question. Will this work in snowy conditions? It will work in snowy conditions. What you need to remember is, number one, if you can get under the snow, you're going to be able to keep yourself warmer because we're not laying on ice and snow. So that initial mattress, if you can get down, you're going to probably not be able to use leaves because there's snow on the ground. So you're going to have to find some type of pine or hemlock in order to lay down. Once you build your frame, again, no leaves. You're going to have to use a lot of pine and hemlock. So that's just going to amplify how much time and energy it takes because you're going to have to find these trees and make this, okay? Okay, I don't teach online classes, but you can go on the Filson blog. They have a lot of good short articles on survival and tips and tricks with survival. I also have a YouTube page, Coalcracker Bushcraft. You can go on there. We have about 700 videos around survival and wilderness living. All right. How cool am I actually? Pretty cool. I'm out here living it. All right. Which shirt? This is a Filson shirt. I don't know which one I got on right now. But these heavier shirts, this is like one of their flannels. I love them for out here in the woods. Pretty much year round, you can wear these things even in the evening and stuff. Okay, do you need a rope to secure the A-frame debris shelter, and do you need to cover the opening? If you can figure a way out to cover the opening, then go for it. I would say don't cover it with debris, but I mean, if you need to because the wind's that crazy, go for it. That A-frame, I use either some roots or vines if I could find something, or if I have a little hank of rope, then I just tie that initial section up, which I can show you that really quickly on this one. So, knocking the whole shelter over here. So if you look at this one right down in here, I just use a little bit of rope, just lash that up, and I'm good to go. And then that thing just stands up really easily. Anything else? Get a couple more and then we can go from there. All right. What about garbage bags? I know individuals, and I have already slept in a garbage bag, the big drum liners. They're just not comfortable. They trap a lot of moisture, and but they'll keep you alive. So that's always a plus. Okay. Location. So again, just to finalize this. So my name is Dan Wowak. I own Coalcracker Bushcraft and Appalachian Bushman School. We are in eastern Pennsylvania. So we are right in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains. I am in a very specific area called the coal region. So the anthracite coal region, that's where Coalcracker Bushcraft comes from. We have mined coal since the late 1800s, I guess. All right. Okay, so I think that'll probably pretty much do it. So that's what I wanted to cover. Remember, dress appropriately. That's your number one defense. If you can carry a shelter, so much better. So much better. If all else fails, survival debris shelter, always an option. Just remember, tight, closed in, trap that heat, protect yourself from the ground, and it's going to keep you safe and alive, just not comfortable. So again, Dan Wowak, I want to thank Filson for letting me get on here and do this. We're also in our Instagram story. If you go to Filson's page, on our Instagram story, we have a slide about Feed America. If you can please, if you have the resources to donate a little bit of money to them, that would be absolutely great, especially in this time with everything happening right now. Some people are having it really, really hard. So that would be absolutely wonderful if you can give back a little bit if you can. So we would greatly appreciate that. Again, you can check that out in the Insta story of the Filson page. So when you get done here, you could do that. I'm also going to be saving this to the story. So if you didn't get to see the beginning or you want to go back and rewatch this, you can go check it out. And then again, if you're interested in any of my stuff, you could check me out at Coalcracker Bushcraft on YouTube or Dan Wowak here on Instagram. So thank you again for joining in. And that's it. I always like to tell people when it's all said and done, stay in the woods. You're probably at your house Cinco de Mayo, so hopefully everybody's enjoying it. But be safe. Next time you get out in the woods, stay in the woods because it's so great out here. Good night.